All right, my official timekeeper tells me it's 6 o'clock, so I'd like to call us to order. In accordance with South Carolina Code of Laws 1985, Section 30-4-80-E, the following have been notified of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting: the Herald, the Charlotte Observer, CN2, and WRHI. If I could ask everyone to please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You have all received a copy of the agenda. Were there any adjustments or corrections? If not, that will stand approved unanimous consent. This says we've got some kind of recognition for our first item.
Yeah. Let me do that. First of all, I need to apologize to the board. January was actually Board Appreciation Month, so we're off a few weeks. But nevertheless, this is one of my most enjoyable agenda items each year. I get to talk a little bit about the board and how important they are to the community. Throughout the history, and I go back a long time, of this district, I was a student here, and I watched boards from that standpoint. I've been back here several years as an employee. I watched boards from being at the school level. I watched boards from the district level and from the superintendent's seat. And I can tell you that we've been very fortunate in Fort Mill to have people who care about public service. These board members, all 7 of them, minus one tonight, one's sick tonight, under the weather, do this for no pay. And you may hear that and think, well, of course they do it for no pay. If you look around the state, I think there are 80 or so school boards, 75 maybe. I think about half of them receive pay, or it used to be like a third did, but I think that's gone up. Not that they don't deserve pay, but that just shows you the commitment and the passion they have for the district and for the community and for our children and for our parents and for our taxpayers. Once you get on the board, and I think you'll all recognize this, Joe's even mentioned to me, it's certainly a lot more than you think to it. You got so much responsibility. Of the duties are broad. You're dealing with all kinds of issues, and not just one issue. So I just want to take this opportunity to thank them. Let me back up one bit. When I was younger, I looked at board members like they were the pillars of the community, involved in their church, involved in their clubs. Even today, I look at them the same way. They're people that care about the community, they care about the district, they care about the children, they care. But we're all here for the same reason, and it's a difficult task. And I just want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. Watching most of my life. School boards, counting the years I went to school, most of my life has been dedicated and spent within the school district in one way or another. And I just want to say, I think our success has been directly attributed to strong boards who do the job because they want to, certainly not because of any personal accolades. So at this time, if you'll help me thank the board members for their service to the community, and we sure do appreciate everything you do.
I think I speak on behalf of the rest of the board to say it is an honor and a privilege to work with you, to work for you all, and we greatly appreciate our schools and our district administration that spoils us every year with handmade cards and letters and pictures, some of which are still in the office at home. We have a basket of goodies. You can see Anthony's is over there. I can't wait to go through it every night. Every year my daughter likes to go through and see what kind of goodies we get. So thank you all very much for this opportunity. And with that, we'll move to the next item on our agenda, which is one of our favorite things to do, a school spotlight. And we've got Dobies Bridge Elementary this month. So I'm not sure who's going to lead that off, but I'll let you guys take it over.
All right. Good evening. Yes, we are excited to continue our school spotlight series. Tonight we have Dobies Bridge Elementary, and we're going to start with Principal Mandy Coobs, and they're going to talk about their journey to become a National Blue Ribbon school. So, Mrs. Coobs.
Hey, good evening. Hope everyone is doing well. I am, as Mr. Ollinger said, Mandy Coobs, proud principal of Dobies Bridge Elementary School. Excuse us tonight if we're looking down. We don't have a projector to help
I
us.
should have mentioned that. I apologize. We've got some technology problems, so I'm sorry that we can't bring it down and show anything, but we can't. Sorry. We'll
awesome.
post it as soon as the meeting is over.
That's awesome. Do y'all have this copy that you can
Maybe.
look through as we go? Because there's some perfect, and there's some photos in there as well. But yes, we are happy to talk tonight about our journey to become a Blue Ribbon School of Excellence Lighthouse School. So before I let this fabulous group of people do most of the talking, I wanted to talk a little bit about why we decided to embark on this journey. And the first, if you look on this page, the purpose of it, you'll see that there are just tons of pictures of students and teachers, and that's basically the why behind it. We have, as all of our schools do, just amazing teachers. They work hard, they collaborate together, they attend basketball games and birthday parties of our kids, and they're just phenomenal educators. So we wanted to highlight all the great work that they do. Second reason's our kids. Our kids are amazing. This process affirmed that. Our site assessors told us that we had some of the best kids in the nation, and I would definitely say that we do. I mean, they have a variety of backgrounds that we didn't really realize until we went through this process. We have a student that's going to speak tonight, and she's going to do an amazing job. But we really wanted to highlight our students as well. And then finally, as we continue to want to recruit the top talent to our district, we needed to set ourselves apart, not just from other schools in the district, sorry, elementary principals. It's always a friendly competition, but we also wanted to set ourselves apart from our neighboring districts and the states around us to try to recruit the top talent to want to come to a Blue Ribbon Lighthouse School of Excellence. So I'm going to turn it over to my amazing staff now.
Good evening. I'm Jackie Pollard, one of the assistant principals at Dobies Bridge Elementary School, and I'm very excited to get to tell you tonight about our process of becoming a Blue Ribbon Lighthouse School and earning that recognition Mrs. Coobs just talked about. So the process began, as anything great does, with a very lengthy written application that took us back to our grad school days. And in this application, we were able to provide the Blue Ribbon organization with everything you could possibly want to know about our school. So it was compiled of different demographic information, lots of data about our students' assessment scores, past achievement scores. We were able to showcase many of the great initiatives we have going on in our school, and we were also able to, like Mrs. Coobs mentioned a minute ago, celebrate our diversity. One of the really cool things we learned through this application was that we have over 50 languages spoken in the homes of our families at our school. And we previously knew there were many languages represented at our school, but we never actually calculated that number. So we thought that was really cool, and we were excited to share that with our staff and celebrate it with our kids as well. The next part of this process was a school visit, and during the school visit, we had 3 site assessors come from the Blue Ribbon Schools organization. The site assessors had many, many years of experience among them. 2 of them were principals that had retired and just kept coming back in different roles in different districts on the East Coast, and so we were really excited to learn from their experience and the feedback that they were able to give us. So the time they spent with us over those 2 days, they did a lot of classroom visits. The majority of their time was spent in classrooms, so they could get to see everything about our school. They visited all of our homerooms, all of our special ed classes, all of our interventionist classrooms, all of our related arts classrooms, and really just tried to make sure that they knew the ins and outs of our school very well. The next part of their visit was interviewing stakeholder groups. So they met with a group of parents in person, they met with a group of students in person, and they met with a group of staff in person as well. And during those meetings, they really asked questions to get information about things we're doing really well and things we could improve on as well. So that was really great. The next part of that, we had an exit meeting where those site assessors met with our school leadership, our school administration essentially, and they really celebrated all of the great things that they saw in our school, but they also provided us some specific feedback on ways that we could continue to improve. So we were excited to gain that information from them. Another part of this really cool process was that we had the opportunity to attend a Blue Ribbon Schools of Excellence conference in Orlando. And at this conference, we were able to choose different professional development offerings that we felt would help us to grow in the areas that they previously recognized as areas that we could improve or take as next steps. So we were able to attend this conference, just a few of our school leaders, and then bring that information back and share it out with our staff. Another big part of the overall process was surveys. And so if you look at the next 10 table in the slides that you were given, you'll see that there are different indicators that these surveys are organized by. So surveys were sent out to our students, our staff, and our parents, and they were all asked a variety of questions, again, to try to get to know our school as absolutely good as you possibly can. The categories are broken down into 9 different areas, and so to become a Blue Ribbon Schools Lighthouse School, we had to have a minimum of 80% pass rating in every one of those 9 categories. If we didn't make an 80% or higher in any one category, then we wouldn't have earned the recognition this go around, and we would have had to try again. You get the idea with that part. So we're really excited to celebrate that we actually did meet the 80% in all areas, but in some areas we actually really exceeded and surpassed that. We were very excited that in leadership and educational vitality and also indicators of success, our survey results were 100% in both of those areas. So that was really exciting. We also had 2 other areas that we thought were really special to recognize, school organization and culture, as well as active teaching and learning. We got both 90% or higher in those areas as well. So these were amazing things that we were able to celebrate with our staff, with our kids, and to share out with our families. The last thing I'll share with you about the survey results, our site assessors shared with us that they had never seen before an overall perception rating as high as the one we had. So when they averaged all of the surveys, which was a lot of information, our overall perception rating from the survey results was a 2.7 out of 3. And they shared with us that it was the highest they'd ever seen in a school they visited. So we were really excited again to celebrate that, not only with our staff, but with our kids and our families. And the next person that's going to share with you tonight is Mr. Miller, one of our fabulous parents, and he's going to share about a parent focus group.
Sorry, guys, but
All right.
slides are playing into it.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Miller. I'm father of Janiyah Miller, student at Dobies Bridge Elementary School. And when I was asked to be a part of this, I was very excited to do it. My daughter has been a part of Dobies since she was in kindergarten. And so 6 years now, and it's just been an absolute great adventure for all of us to be a part of Dobies Bridge family. And so I just want to share very quickly, everyone is familiar with the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. And Dobies Bridge has, in my opinion, they have established not only, the staff, the students, and including the parents. It's like a 3-chord strand that cannot be broken. They have established that, in my opinion. And so my experience, and I just want to share very quickly, my experience with Dobies is, going in, making copies, along with my wife, helping out, chaperoning trips. And one of the greatest thrills that I had as part of Dobies Bridge was a little thing called Watchdogs. And so they added Watch to Dogs, which is abbreviated for Dads of Great Students, where they brought in, fathers and uncles, the males into the school. And I had a nice little schedule set out for me during the day, and went to the different classes and assisted as much as I can. Did recess with the kids, so they just kept me in shape. And ate lunch with my daughter. But one of the greatest things also that happened during the Watchdogs was that I was in a 4th grade class, and the teacher asked me to talk with a student, just have a talk with him, walk him down the hallway because he felt discouraged. And so, and I did that, and I enjoyed it so much. But what Dobies Bridge didn't know that I'm a retired social worker, so this is my field of expertise. And so we had such a good time walking down the hallway, coming back. And he was just sharing how he was just missing his dad because he came from a broken home. But when we came back, he was ready to get to work. And so that was just really awesome. In our parent meeting, I just want to share in our parent meeting that we, and you can look on the parent focus group here in our group. And as parents, we unanimously agree that the environment here at Dobies Bridge is very welcoming. The school feels like home for students and families. The communication by administration and teachers is exceptional. The teachers go above and beyond. They contact us on weekends and at night to discuss where students are towards reaching their goals. And if you go down, I'm going to skip one because I won't read them all. It feels safe here, and that's one thing that's very important for parents, is that your child is in the school and they're safe. The staff is impressive, very much. And it begins with the leadership that filters down. And we have had really good experience with a variety of teachers here. There's a consistency in the staff. Our kids are happy to come to school. They enjoy it. And that's because of the teachers. Teachers are very invested here at the school and beyond the school day. And the last one I'm just going to read for you. The support staff is amazing. The amount of work they do and the quality of it's great. The quality of it is great. They engage with you, want to be here, and do a phenomenal job. And as a veteran who spent 12 years in the military, my wife did 5 years in the military. And when it comes to leadership, and I can honestly say that through the leadership of Mrs. Coobs, supported by the leadership of Mrs. Pollard and Mr. McGill, that Dobies Bridge is an excellent school. And no school is perfect. And I'm a father of 5, so I had children in the school system in the state of Kansas, New Jersey, and North Carolina. But coming here to South Carolina, as I said, they're not perfect, but they're blue ribbon. And thank you. They did not. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. You're a tough act to follow. Good evening, guys. I'm Brittany Nash. I'm the lead teacher at Dobies Bridge Elementary, and I'm going to share with you a little bit about, through this process, how they gathered teacher and staff feedback. So in addition to the extensive surveys that Ms. Pollard talked about, they had a focus group made up of teachers, and it was a random selection of about 16 teachers. Every grade level was represented, every area. There were special services, related arts, instructional leadership, and they brought us all in a room with the site assessors while they were there. And it was a really neat experience. We got to sit and talk with people we don't normally get to see in the building. You know, sometimes upstairs doesn't always get to see who's downstairs and vice versa. But the way they gathered the feedback, I thought, was a really authentic, positive process. We were in groups of about 4 or 5. The first thing they did was pose the question, what do you love about Dobies Bridge? And they gave us about 5 minutes just to get to talk to each other and have some really authentic conversations. And then we got to share our whole group. So everybody had a chance for input. Everybody was heard. And they were just kind of writing down and taking notes and taking in the conversation. They weren't really participating in it. They were just listening. And then they asked the second question, what would make Dobies Bridge even better? And that was an amazing conversation to have because we all want what's best for our school, and we're already like with a growth mindset of we want to just make Dobies Bridge even better. So those conversations, and then we again shared out the feedback, was just a great way. It was not intimidating. It felt authentic. Everybody's perspectives were heard and respected. And it was just a really neat process for them to gather staff feedback. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Campbell, and she's going to share with you what some of that feedback was.
So hi, I'm Heather Campbell. I'm a special education teacher at Dobies Bridge Elementary. I was actually hired by Dr. Frateroli the first year we opened, so I've been here a while. And I was honored to be asked by the committee to be a representative for the special education department in that committee. And so I'm going to share a little bit about what the teachers said in that meeting. So one of the things we kept hearing over and over is that it's a positive culture. We really do have a school that really cares about each other. The parents care, the students care, the administrators care, and it really makes us have a happy environment, a very positive environment. We've embraced the CI3T new program that we're doing with that positive reinforcement, and it really shows in the hallways. Another thing that's very dear to me as a special education teacher is that we are a very inclusive school. One teacher said, all the students belong to all of us, and that truly is true, and I think that really summarizes how we look at the outlook of all the students at our school. It doesn't matter if you have a disability, if you're from up north, if you're from here, if you're from far away, if you have a different background, we embrace it and we really cherish that. Another thing that we talked about is our morale. I know if you listen to the news and you read social media, you hear that teachers are unhappy, and I don't think there's ever going to be a teacher that's going to say we get paid enough, obviously. But all the teachers that were in this meeting, a lot of them are from other states. They've been in other districts, in other schools, and they all said, if we're going to be a teacher, this is the place to be. We feel that Dobies Bridge is a great place to work. We feel valued by our administrators, by our parents, by our students, and by our district personnel. So we really think that this is a great place to work. Another thing that the teachers talked a lot about is our dedication. We want to continue getting better at what we do. And with that, that kind of turns to the things that we want to improve upon. And something that I found that was really interesting was the things that we want to improve upon was really based on ourselves. We want to do better. So the things that we want to see at Dobies Bridge, a lot of things we have actually started implementing, or it's things that we had done before COVID that we had to stop that we're reintroducing. Teachers want to have, we want to continue developing that PLC model that we've been working on this year. We want more vertical planning that we used to do so teachers can talk to other grade levels. And we also want more team building. The other thing that the teachers want is more of the mindful professional development where we can learn, but we can also take it to our classroom immediately and apply it and help those students. The last thing that the teachers said in our meeting was our administrators. We feel that our administrative team is really student focused. We know that our administrators and our leadership team make decisions that's best for those students, but we also feel that they're very teacher centered and they're very respectful and understanding of our challenges. And one of the things that they do is they make very purposeful administrative decisions, and they include us into that decision. They get feedback from us, they explain the why for their decisions, and it really makes us feel like we're part of that team and we buy into their vision for our school. So those are just some of the things that the teachers said about in the meeting, and now I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Redden and Ms. Miller.
Good evening. My name is Amy Redden, and I am one of the school counselors, and I am here with...
Janaya Miller. I'm a 5th grade student at Dobies Bridge.
And we get the pleasure of talking about the student focus group. So I got to be in there and taking the notes for all the kids, and they were phenomenal. They were super cute. They did a great job, but they were all very nervous. And so they were like, what are they going to say, Miss Redden? What are they going to ask us? What is going to be? And I was like, I don't know. I've never done this before. So I said, it doesn't matter. If they're going to ask you questions, you guys are going to be honest. You're going to be great. You're going to show fire expectations, which is what we have, which is being friendly, inclusive, respectful, and engaged. And you're going to do an awesome job. So it was very similar to what Ms. Nash talked about in that they put the kids, it was grades 3, 4, and 5, and they mixed them up at some tables. They asked the similar questions, let them all discuss between them individually first. He just kind of monitored around, and then they all got to share out what it was that they liked about Dobies, and again, things that they would like to improve on. But they really did an amazing job, and Miss Janaya is going to talk about specifically what the kids shared, a few things that the kids shared.
Some things I really like about Dobies are activities like School Club Day, Dragon Scales, Green Team, Girls on the Run, Safety Patrol, Junior Librarians, Classroom Jobs, etc. The fact that we always feel safe is amazing, and how we practice safety drills a lot and talk about them. Next is the related arts. They are so much fun, and how we have the opportunity to learn and have fun at the same time. I've been here for 6 years, so since kindergarten, and my experience at the school has been amazing.
So while, I know, give her a round of applause. She's fabulous, clearly, shows a lot of fire. So one of the things, not only did they talk about the things that they loved, but they also did share some very practical, that I'm going to leave you with, of feedback. Some were obviously some pre-COVID things like, we want to go on more field trips, which is obviously already in the works. But they also very practically were sitting at the desks and they were like, you know, we have these triangle desks. I really wish we had square desks because we would have more room for all of our materials and to spread out. So I thought it was really, really, really cute that they even came up with that. And as the assessors told them before they all left, if anybody asks, you tell them that you knocked it out of the park, and they really did. So it was an amazing experience to be a part of and to see how the kids really responded to that, and they were fine. They did an amazing job. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. McGill.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fabian McGill. I'm the other assistant principal here at Dobies Bridge. So, let me make sure I'm right here. Here we go. So as we were able to do, once we got all of that information back, it was a lot of information that we had to kind of take and digest. But we wanted to celebrate our students and staff because honestly, we got it because of them, right? Our teachers were doing an amazing job. Our students did an amazing job. And they truly showed that they care about our school because we care about them. And one of the things that we were able to do is actually DJ lunch. That was an awesome opportunity. I wish we could show you the pictures. There were kids dancing on the floor. Unfortunately, they called me to the floor, so I had to dance a little bit as well. But it was a really, really great opportunity. And of course, we can't leave out our PTO staff. The PTO came to our school. They made cotton candy. If you all could have seen it, it was all over the ceiling. It was all over their clothes and their hair. But these ladies put in work. They really did. They were committed to the cause. And all of our students, 700 plus, were able to get cotton candy that day. So we were just pretty grateful for everything that they were able to do to commit to our school. On top of that, our awesome school board and our superintendent were able to come to our school when we were celebrating our staff. So we had a blue breakfast. We had some blueberries, some donuts, and different things like that, just to celebrate the staff in a small way, right? It's the small things that matter. So we definitely wanted to showcase that. And of course, we didn't leave it at breakfast. You got to feed them for lunch. So we actually got together as an entire staff. We went and got barbecue. We sat down, and we were able to digest some of that feedback again. So what we did, we just got some information from the staff, basically that was returned from the committee. And we just discussed, teachers, what do you think some short-term and some long-term goals that we can start attacking right now? And so it was a really great opportunity to learn and to grow, and honestly, just to see that growth and development right in the moment. Just making sure I say everything else. All right. And so, again, just leading off of that staff meeting, some things that we were learning that our teachers were like Ms. Campbell said earlier, some things that we were going to do short term is work on teacher coverage support. And a lot of that is coming from our parent volunteers because we have a large parent population who again, is very committed to our school. So we want to just start opening that up to our teachers and letting them have some of that time back. Because as we all know, in elementary school, the planning period is not as great as we all would like it to be. So we're just trying to get creative and trying to give some of that time back to them. And when we're looking at student leadership, so we wanted to create more opportunities of student leadership because as they said, even the committee members, when they came to our school, they said, hey, there's plenty of schools out here that would trade with your kids any day. So we wanted to capitalize on that and make sure our kids were prepared to go into middle school moving forward. So one of the clubs that we actually recently started, thanks to Ms. Pollard and Ms. Nash, is our Dragon Den store, where students are running that fully on their own. I think that they kind of learn some financial literacy, right? How to balance, how to budget, and how to save because you may not have enough right then. So it's been a wonderful opportunity just to see the kids kind of pick that up and start rolling with it. We started several other clubs, again, that we are utilizing on our early release days. So we have 3 through 5. All of our related arts teachers, they'll open up different clubs. We've had ukulele, we had lava lamps, some dance parties with glow sticks. Of course, I'm in the dance party. But there's always something going on that we, again, split between those early release days. So that's been a really, really good opportunity to see our students involved. And some instructional feedback is that what our teachers told us they were looking for as well. So something that we were able to do, thanks to Mr. Wagner, is create a walkthrough tool for our teachers. So we wanted to figure out a way to give them that immediate feedback right then and there. And so now as we're walking around our school, we can just come in, see what our teachers are doing, comment on the awesomeness that we're looking at, and then go right back out. And they have that immediate gratification for it. So that's something that we're really appreciative of. And looking at our student engagement, we wanted to really hone in on that, and that was actually a part of our 5-year plan to figure out a way to increase our male engagement, especially in reading. So luckily, shouting out another point of ours, we already decreased that gap for our male reading. And so we want to continue to increase our in-class libraries. So we want to push back into more male readings and more things that they're interested in to kind of pick up that engagement piece. And lastly, as Ms. Pollard has stated, we found out we had over 50 different languages represented in our schools. That's awesome. And so what we're looking to do now is just find out different ways we can celebrate that diversity. And of course, that takes some homework on our part. So we have to now learn about that diversity and just become more culturally relevant about that information. All right? And so future opportunities, here's where it gets great. So what the committee has done, they have invited our school back out to receive our award coming up in Orlando in November. And on top of that, not only are we going to receive that award, but they also asked us to bring a group of staff members to present about our school to other schools coming to that conference. So we're super excited about this opportunity to share all the beautiful things that we're doing and to share how awesome our district is. So we just thank you all for being here, and we thank all of our teachers and students for doing what they do best. So thank you all.
I think this has become our favorite part of our board meetings every month. So thank you very much. And the Blue Breakfast was a lot of fun that morning, I must say. Our next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from both the January 10th and the 24th. You've all received copies. Were there any adjustments or corrections to either of those? No. All right, those will stand approved with unanimous consent. And then following that, we have public participation. I do have a couple cards here. It looks like you guys have organized yourselves already. So I'm going to call them in the order that they were given to me to call them in this order. They're all related. I have had the opportunity to correspond with a few of you on this, but because I know some of you have not been to board meetings in the past, I just wanted to go over sort of the ground rules of how public participation works. Just as a reminder, these are our business meetings. They're not really public forum meetings. They're just meetings that are held in public. We invite speakers to offer objective comments on school operations and programs of concern. We will not permit in this session any expression of personal complaints on school personnel or against anyone connected with the school system. We do have various established procedures designed to ensure orderly management of the school district if there are needs for escalation. So with that, it looks like we'll have about 3 minutes apiece. For our timekeeper, I guess we can do that. I'm not sure how it's going to work without the screen. And our first one, if I can read it correctly, is Milton Chicas. Okay. When you come to the microphone, if you'll state your name and address, and then the time is yours, and you can address the board.
Good evening, President Spears, distinguished board members. I'm here to share a couple of concerns or share an objective approach. I took a couple notes over here, and I would like to share this with you. It's really great. I hope this microphone is adjusted correctly. It's really great to hear the feedback from the experience of other teachers at other locations. It's quite encouraging. Something else that's encouraging also is that I brought this with me. This is my I voted sticker, and it's so great to see all your names. Now I recognize you. I'm glad you made it, because I have a concern about the ability to retain talent. This particular school. Hear me out. I am an immigrant from one of the poorest countries in the world. The only way that I was able to get out of poverty was through education. I tried everything, and the only way that worked for me was education. And that's the reason why I'm here. I'm an American citizen now. I have a different condition. So when I think about education, I think about it completely different. And we're given resources. And those resources are used to educate our children in our community. And it will be a disservice for us as parents not to take this opportunity and speak with you politely, respectfully, and ask, would you please, once again, let's take a look at what's going on. Let's take a look at this survey. Let's take a look at the outcome. Let's take a look at that information. And let's address the reason why we are unable to retain top talent at Tigake Elementary School. Why? All right? Many of us have probably learned about Simon Sinek and start with why, right? And folks that do what they do because it's their calling. So I implore you, ask you, would you please look into these particular issues and work with the teams, work with the parents, work with the teachers, and let's figure it out together, because we're part of the same community, right? You're probably some of my neighbors. So let's work together and make sure that we can give our children the best possible opportunity. They have a huge opportunity in education here in our community in the United States. I value that very much. Our family values education very much. And there are many parents over here that do the same. And we're here for the same reason. Several of them, I don't know. We are a cross-section of society that are here for the exact same reason. Thank you.
Next up, I have Christy Scott.
Hi, I live at 9073 Tulagi Court. My name is Christy Scott, and I am a former teacher at TK Elementary School. I helped open TK Elementary School in 2014. I also live in the community of TK, for the same community. I live side by side with the students that have attended the school for the last 9 years, and both my children attended that school as well, and they're here tonight. Thanks for coming, guys. I took an enormous amount of pride in the privilege given to me to teach and love the children in that setting. I witnessed firsthand the change in the culture that corroded the teacher perception of the working environment at TK Elementary School. The corrosion is reflected in the teacher survey for the last 3 years. This culture pushed me into a place that I had to make a choice between my mental health and my identity as a PE teacher in my community. I am here to speak for many of my former colleagues in the school who do not feel safe enough to do so. I am here to speak for many of my former colleagues who had to make decisions to leave the school either through positions in other schools or leaving teaching altogether. I am here to speak for the teachers who have followed proper channels in asking for help and have not been heard. I am here to ask for your consideration to the petition being put forward today that has been signed by over 300 of my community members. Thank you.
The next card is Lauren James.
My name is Lauren James. My address is 2202 Dogwood Bay Lane in TKK. They say a good education can change anyone, but a good teacher can change everything. I have 2 children at TKK Elementary, and I can tell you firsthand that the teachers at TKK Elementary do exactly this every day. We moved here 18 months ago from out of state, and I can't tell you what the teachers at the school have meant to me and my family in that short time. During the first week of school, it was about 5 p.m., I remember, because I was cooking dinner. Long after the school day had ended, I received phone calls that whole first week of school from each of my children's teachers, just telling me like how they were adjusting to school and asking if I had any questions, letting me know how things would work in their classroom, grades, etc. Because a good teacher can change everything. The teachers at TKK Elementary are the best in Fort Mill. I know this because I subbed there for several months last year. I saw it firsthand. These teachers are there well past their required hours. They show up at their students' sporting events. They never fail to stop and say hi when you see them out in public. They meet you for lunch in the summer when your child is missing them and is nervous about starting in middle school. They take 20 seconds to drop you an email when they're proud of your student and not just when they've done something wrong. They create the most supportive and inclusive classrooms where you get to watch your son grow and spread his wings and begin to show you what you always knew he had in him. They show up every day. Integrity is doing the right thing even when nobody is watching, and the amount of integrity these teachers have shown me and my family is immeasurable. We cannot afford to lose them. So I come to you today with concerns about the 4.86 out of 10 score that was recorded for TKK Elementary under the teacher perceptions of working conditions on the state report card. I lost my place. Also, according to the report card, only 61.5% of the teachers returned to TKK Elementary from the previous year. These teachers deserve better, and they deserve an investigation from an independent company to figure out why they have such a rating. I saw someone say, a teacher's working environment is a student's learning environment. And with this in mind, I would like to remind you of the school district's mission, children first, every day. is at the heart of each decision made by staff, teachers, and trustees. I know the teachers have been doing the right thing, so now it is time for you to do the right thing, just as we teach our children to do each and every day. Thank you.
And then I have Tony McIntyre. There she is. Sorry.
My name is Tony McIntyre, and I live at 1201 Whitetail Drive in TGK. I echo the sentiments of Christy, Mr. Chica, Lauren. Our teachers at TGK Elementary are amazing. My oldest daughter was the first class at TGK Elementary School. We've loved that school from the beginning. We need to find out what's going on there. I approached the district about 7-8 months ago to ask the question why we were losing so many teachers. The response that I was given was pretty much nothing to see here. There was no accountability for attrition. There was nothing put in place to keep up with teachers who were leaving, the reasons they were leaving. You know, as a school district who does believe in attracting and retaining talent, how do you do that when you don't have the metrics in place to know how many teachers you have coming and going and why they're leaving? There's no formal exit interview, from what I've been told. So how do you know why the teachers are leaving? I don't understand that. So we went through back through the yearbooks, and we counted 60 teachers that have gone in the last 4 years. That's an entire school of teachers. That's an entire school of turnover. There's no explanation for it. Nobody knows why, except we do know why. There's a problem in the school, and we need to find out what that problem is. The surveys for the last 4 years have reflected clearly what the problem is. 4 years, these surveys have been there. Everything's there on the South Carolina Department of Education website. I would encourage parents to look it up. Go there, find out what's going on. Hear the teachers, see what they have to say. We are at a 4.86, like Lauren said. We're number 20 out of 20 schools in this district for teacher perception of working condition. That's unacceptable. The next lineup, I think, is a 6.2. So we are really at the bottom, and we need to figure this out. I did bring the surveys with me. I know you guys probably have access to them. You've probably seen them. I'm happy to leave them with you. The petition was dropped off this morning.
The petition has been dropped off, and everybody's got a copy of it. Haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but we did receive it here in the district office.
Okay. This is the rest of the documentation with the scorecards and the surveys for the last 4 years. I went through and highlighted where the teachers are screaming loudly that they need help. They're not being heard. They've gone to the district. They've discussed this with several people. Nobody's listening. We've got to hear them, or we're going to lose more teachers, and our school's going to be gutted of experienced teachers. I'm not sure what more that I can add other than what's already been added. I'm just asking that you talk to the teachers.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we've got a couple different staff reports. We're going to start out with the audit report that we were not able to do last month, and we're excited to have the opportunity to talk about it today. I got to get my
Let me move some of this. Good evening. Yes, we're excited to have David Phillips here tonight to present the audit report to you and answer your questions. And this is for our fiscal year ended June 30th, 2022. Last month, you had a chance to see the students that did the wonderful graphics for our book and recognize them. And I just wanted to reiterate that what we do with this is not required. We consider this one of the only public documents that goes out that really shows the amount of work that goes into and the adherence to detail and the accountability for our public, for our financial transactions of the district. So we take a lot of pride in this, and we do choose to do it in this manner at this level.
This was submitted to the State Department by the required date of December 1st. It's also been submitted to 2 award programs for Certificate of Excellence, and we do feel like this report, once again, meets all the requirements. We're very fortunate in this district. I think, I'm a little biased, but I think we probably have one of the strongest financial groups in the state. Elizabeth Robinson's here tonight. Elizabeth is our Director of Finance and oversees our finance department. Also, Kim Mathis is here, and Kim is our Coordinator of Financial Services, and Kim works very closely with each of our school bookkeepers on a regular basis. And it really does start with our school bookkeepers. And we are very fortunate to have a great group of school bookkeepers who do a wonderful job just adhering to the details and the requirements, and kind of answering all the questions that we have of them. We have just a great group, and I can't thank them enough for all the work. What you see is just the summary report, and you can imagine all the transactions, everything that is bought in the district, every payroll check written that goes into this booklet. But I'm pleased that we're at this point tonight, and I'll turn it over to David for his comments and certainly to answer all of your questions. David?
All right, thank you for allowing me to be here. I was going to come last month, but my mother-in-law passed away that very day unexpectedly, so I kind of had to detour everything, and she was gracious to let me push it off for 1 month. I know we don't have the PowerPoint slide, but hopefully you have a copy, and if you don't mind, we'll walk through that. But if you have questions as we go through the slide, please feel free to interject, or if you want to wait to the end, that will be fine as well. But on the first slide, on the bottom, we just like to remind everybody about the importance of internal control. You know, that there needs to be checks and balances within an organization. We don't want one person to be able to do it all. And so one of the things that we try to do as your auditors is that we try to look at your significant internal control processes, kick the tires, so to speak. And if we see issues, it's not only important that I talk to Leanne and her staff and Dr. Epps, it's important that you know about it. Because you can't really fix something if you don't know it's broken. So again, that is something that's going on behind the scenes as well. On the next slide, which is number 3, we talk about our opinion. We have issued what is called a clean opinion, an unmodified opinion. If we modified our report, we would say everything looks good except for this one thing. So unmodified means we're not aware of anything being significantly misstated. You remember, too, we look at things from a materiality perspective. Some of you, a penny matters. Some of you, if you get close, you're good, and you move on. So it's usually about 1 to 2%. So that's kind of what we're trying to do as we go through the audit. Also, when we move to the next slide, I know this is the real key one for most of you, is looking at your fund balance. You had unassigned fund balance of approximately $39.6 million as of June 30th of last year. That was about 23% of your expenditures for fiscal year 22. Now, compared to the prior year, that was about 22, so you were up about 1% over the prior year. And if you look at that chart, that's a really good trend. But one thing you've got to keep in mind, you're growing every year, and your fund balance needs to grow to keep that percentage. Because your expenditures are going up with new enrollment, new schools, and so forth. If you just left your fund balance the same year over year, that percentage would begin to drop because your overall expenditures are rising. All right, well, let's go to the next slide. So why do you want to have a strong fund balance? Remember, your property taxes, they go out, the levy's usually out in September, October. A lot of people pay in December if they want the tax deduction, or they wait till the new year, but you really don't collect a lot more real property taxes the rest of the year. Everybody's paying in a very tight window there. It gives you flexibility. If you have, emergencies or something comes up, all of us should have a rainy day fund, right, personally. So if somehow I lost my job or if I got injured, I need to be able to carry myself until maybe I can go back to work. So it helps in those areas as well. It gives you flexibility. If you want to do a project, maybe you don't borrow it all. Maybe you pay some with your own cash because you have some resources saved. Also, when you issue debt, they look at your fund balance, they look at your track record. And if they see you have a good track record, the bank's going to give you a better rate than the person down the street. And just, we live in uncertain economic times. And so you want to keep that cushion even more so because of the type of times that we're in. All right, the next slide. Number 6, we're going to look at the general fund revenues. They were $174.5 million, an increase of about 15.8 or 10% over the prior year. State revenues are coming in very strong, but remember, you have a lot of enrollment growth, and that is a big driver in the student costs, base student costs, even though it's kind of a new name now, and the allocations that you are given were way up as well. Remember too, your property tax revenues were up about $7.4 million. You had $11.1 million increase, but also your assessed values just keep growing and growing there. So when we look at your budget, which is the last bullet point on that slide, you were up over budget by about 4% or $7.3 million. It's pretty much those same areas. And part of that too is your staff is conservative. You don't want to overreach and then we have a pullback in the economy, and then you're over your budget. And so they're trying to juggle that as best they can so you don't ever get into a bad situation there. All right, well, let's look at the next slide. We're going to look at your general fund expenditures. They were $175.8 million. They increased about $16 million or 10%. And remember, pretty much you're a people business. I mean, when your costs go up, it's because of salary and benefits, right? And remember this past year, you gave us a salary step increase. You have higher benefit costs. You got new classroom teachers coming in. We got dual modal work going on. So there was a lot of cost, and that's the driver behind your instruction and supporting expense increase there. As it relates to budget, you came in slightly over budget, but remember, this year you elected and you made a $1.8 million dual modality payment, and that wasn't budgeted for. Now, if you hadn't have decided to do that, you would have been well under budget. But that's, again, why you want to be kind of conservative in your budgeting, because you never know kind of how everything will fall out there. You had some transfers out and stuff that we mentioned on the bottom of that slide, where you also set aside some additional monies for future school openings and so forth. The next page, number 8, we're just going to briefly look at some of your other major funds. Remember the special project fund and the special revenue EIA fund. Remember, all those monies are like programs from the state that you have to spend a certain way. So most of those monies are restricted, but we just kind of wanted to highlight the special projects fund. You expended about 19.1, and a lot of that is your federal monies like ESSER and IDA and all those monies coming through there. The Education Improvement Act funds are more state programs, and you expended about $4 million there as well. And then we moved down to food service. And again, you get federal money, but you also sometimes are, of course, getting contributions for student meals and so forth as well, and teachers as well on that. You had revenues of $11.4 million, but the real key, you really were able to increase the fund balance there by about 2.8, because we had a lot of federal money coming in because of the COVID, and it's about to end. So a lot of our school districts got to see some windfall in their food service funds over the last year or so. All right, next slide. We're going to just briefly look at your debt service funds. You had about $13.4 million in fund balance. Remember, that can only be used for debt service. So it's not like you can just sit there, I just transfer that over to the general fund. It's really only for your outstanding debt there. Remember, you had a millage decrease of 13 mills from 85 to 72. And then we jump over to the Capital Projects Fund, and you had about $102 million set aside in fund balance for some of your future long-range facility plans. So remember, that money is there. And then we just kind of list that, you began a number of years ago to set aside monies for school, future school openings. And there's been some years you add, some years you take, but the balance that remains at the end of the year is about $9.1 million that remains for those future school openings. Remember, this was kind of actually a slow year for capital assets. Normally you have tons of schools going on and millions are going out because you're trying to build these new schools. This year it was a lot less. And so we did have capital-related costs of about $29.2 million. Again, that was finishing up Forest Creek Middle School, some fire protection at Fort Mill High School, and some other capital projects there. You did issue a couple long-term obligation, and that was about $29.9 million. And then again, you're just making your debt service payments on your existing debt. Let's briefly look at pensions. Remember, that's the retirement plans that you participate in on the state level, like a lot of our local governments. Because you have a lot of payroll and you're growing, the way that gets allocated is based on roughly your payroll or roughly your contributions into the plan. So the more you pay into the PEBA, the state retirement plan, you get a higher allocation of the overall liability or asset on the state level. And unfortunately, it's a pretty big liability down there. So when we look at that, your net pension liability is about $194 million. So if you got your slice of it, it would be $194 million. But the kicker here is not that you're going to have to write a check for $194. The real kicker is the last bullet point there. They're raising rates. Every year they've been raising, and we're getting to the very last year of the 1% rate increase. But their hope is that by people contributing more, they can begin to shore up the state plan. And we'll see if that starts happening or not. The actual liability went down this year for you because they look at investment, the portfolio, and when they measure this, it's as of June 30th of 21. So it's a year before your financial statement date. And if you would go back in your mind to June 30th of 21, investment balances were at really an all-time high. So what you're going to probably see from the next year at 6/30 of 22, the rates weren't so good. And you're going to probably see your liability really jump up for the next year's audit. All right, well, let's look at the next slide. I think we're going to briefly look at OPEB. Now, remember, this is retiree health insurance. It's another benefit. Now, we think sometimes pension is bad. Pension is funded around 60%. OPEB is funded at less than 10 cents on a dollar. They don't have a lot of money down there for future retirees. And so, here, if you look, your overall OPEB liability is about $243 million. So it actually now exceeds the pension liability. And the kicker here is the second to last bullet point is the fact that, you're paying a rate, or the last bullet point, a rate of 6.25, but I just don't see how that rate's going to stay there. I think they're going to have to start raising that rate. And maybe what they may wait to do is wait till the last pension increase stops, and then they begin to raise it after that time because they've got to shore up that system. All right, slide number 12, just briefly looking at your capital assets. Those are your property, plant, and equipment. You had a balance of about $556.1 million. Remember, that's all the schools, all the land you have, and all your equipment, and so forth out there. You had additions this year of $8.4 million. We talked about Forest Creek Middle School and some of the fire protection upgrades at Fort Mill High School and so forth. But remember, when we capitalize it, we begin to depreciate it over its estimated useful life. And this year, your depreciation exceeded your additions. That's rare for you. Usually it's the flip, and it probably will flip real soon. Then the next thing is looking at your long-term obligations. You had a total outstanding balance at June 30th of 22 of $551 million. It decreased $11.2 million. And mainly you had your normal payments of about $38.3, but you issued some new debt. And so they kind of offsetted, but still was a net decrease for you there. Remember, when you enter into debt, you have a mortgage payment. The mortgage payment for the year that we're in right now is about $77.6 million. And so it's just like on your house. You borrow on the house, you've got the same mortgage payment. That's kind of what's happening on your debt as well. All right, next slide. Slide number 13. We had to implement a new standard on leases this year. The good thing is we really didn't see any significant long-term leases, and so we didn't have to record any. But what they're wanting to do is if you did enter into a long-term lease, they want you to treat it like debt and record it on those government-wide statements with your other long-term obligations. Next year, we have to implement a standard on IT agreements. And what they're going to say, if you enter into a long-term IT agreement, let's say you're renting or leasing software at $100,000 a year for 10 years, that's $1 million. We want you to record that on your balance sheet. We want people to see that liability. and not just disclose it in the notes. So that's kind of where we're heading on that. Slide number 14, if we had concerns, like if we saw bank recs weren't being done, or we didn't see proper review and approval and it was systemic, we would let you know it here. We didn't come across any issues that we felt like we needed to report. We look at your single audit programs. This year we looked at the ESSER program. It looked good. We didn't have any issues there. The only thing that we always like to remind everybody is the last item on that slide, number 14, is about your student pupil activity funds. There's always risk there. You got to realize little Johnny and little Jill are giving money to the teacher to the bookkeeper, there's a lot that could go wrong there. And we feel like, you've done about all you can do, unless you want to hire a whole bunch more bookkeepers to put them in. Then you probably cost more than you would ever save. So only thing I always want to caution you about, one every 5 years, you probably will have something hit the paper. Somebody may do something inappropriate. You'll probably catch it. It may be a few $1,000s. I just don't want you to get alarmed. To try to fix that would cost you far more than the cost or the risk that you would take there. All right, last slide. Again, unmodified opinion. That's a good thing. Really have good, financial condition. And I will echo, I do a lot of school districts. Our firm does a lot of school districts, and just have a great staff. Really, really great staff. And so I always say, don't mess it up. Because, it's so easy for things to start going awry and it snowballs. And so I'm just very thankful. We have our firm, people are wanting to be on this audit because they know it's good. And that doesn't happen in a lot of places. So again, just kudos to Leanne and her staff. Any questions that you might have for me?
I would echo your comments about kudos to Leanne and her staff, because we know what we have. The only other thing I always like to point out, and of course now I'm not going to be able to put my fingers on it very quickly. Leanne, you can probably tell me the page. Just last night, some of us were at County Council, and there was a fee in lieu agreement that was being signed. No, it was for Rock Hill. It was not here locally, but you talk about how much we've raised millage because of our growth, but we also lose out a significant amount of dollars every year because page 89. Yeah, I was gonna say.
It's bad when she memorizes it.
Yeah, well, it's because it's a frustrating page for all of us, and so I can get to it. Yeah, over $10 million just in that calendar year.
Correct.
Of
deals
in lieu of taxes that we would have received.
Right.
So frustrating.
Not a question, but just a statement. I've sat here and listened to you for many years now, and always very much appreciate the way that you put this together and make it understandable and try to hit the highlights.
Right.
Cut out all the other.
Yeah.
And show them that anyway, but really appreciate that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
But Ms. Lordo, you are not done because you have the next item as well.
And I'll just make two follow-up comments. As Mr. Phillips mentioned about the pupil activity funds, one of the things that we do in this district is the online payment process for our parents. It's a company called Acorn. We call it Pay Fees on our website. But one of the reasons that we began that several years ago was to help reduce the amount of cash coming through our schools, whether it was cash or checks. And I can't tell you how much our teachers have appreciated that, as well as our bookkeepers. And our parents have certainly embraced that and supported that, with us asking them to, whenever possible, pay their fees online instead of sending money in with their student. So that's one of the things we do to help alleviate some of that cash in the schools.
And
Oh,
Leanne,
sure.
I know obviously all of the schools, booster clubs, PTOs, et cetera, are all separate entities that are not
Correct.
part of the school. However, you also do some training to make sure all of those organizations have appropriate checks and balances.
Correct.
and are
We
trying-
we engage with our outside firm. Sometimes Mr. Phillips comes, sometimes one of his other partners come once a year, and we offer an opportunity for the leadership of our school parent support groups, PTO, PTA, and booster clubs, to come that evening. They share some best practices. As he mentioned, this is one of just a few firms in South Carolina that specialize in school district audits. And that's why we have enjoyed working with them for so long, because there's not many like them that truly specialize and work very closely with the State Department of Education as well. But they offer other services, and we always get very good feedback from the training they do that night to help support our parent support groups and offer assistance and answer questions. We usually try to do that early to mid-October, give them a chance to get the school year started, and then offer that opportunity for those groups. But we're certainly here to also help them, and even though we are independent, we do not get involved with their decision-making. We certainly don't handle any of their funding, but we are here if a question would come up throughout the year. We're here to offer support if we can to help them as we go along. Okay, tonight in your packet is the monthly financial report for December. We are exactly halfway in the fiscal year at that point. Total revenues were $91.4 million. Total expenditures $84.9 million. We turned the corner. We were in a positive cash flow of $6.5 million. This is what we would expect. But if you compare to last year, for those of you who are on the board, you will remember, and for our new board members, the county was delayed in sending out tax notices in October of 2021. So we did not see as much tax revenue come in December of last year. So we are now more on a normal schedule. This is what we would expect as a positive cash flow. Once again, those vehicle tax collections exceeded $1 million, $1,027,856. Real estate taxes were $21.5 million in December. So there were a lot of people who went ahead and paid early before the January 15th deadline. And fee and lieu, we saw $1.9 million come in fee and lieu. Most of fee and lieu is going to come in January. We don't generally have as many companies, corporations that pay early. So that's not unusual. And December is the month, and we did receive 90% of Tier 1, which is what we call the old homestead exemption. And that is a frozen amount. It's $1,873,371. So you probably saw that in the revenue section for December. The real key will be once we see January taxes, and then I can report to you next month how I think we're tracking and where we will probably end the year in comparison to the budget for property taxes after January. I have not received those reports yet for January. Any questions about December year to date? Okay. Impact fees. We have collected to date $55,635,190. Single-family units, 2,063, and multifamily, 1,536, for a total of 3,599. We saw a little shift in January. We had 18 homes in January and 15 multifamily apartments in January. We had 2 very large days in January. We have also already had 1 very large day in February with 19 units. We collected $277,000 already in February, and this is the February 7th. So we have 1 large day already in February. Comparable data for 12 months rolling, we are still seeing about the 39 to 40% less on homes, but we're 158% more on apartments. The 12-month rolling.
Well, and it's more townhomes.
Townhomes?
At this point than
Okay.
it is apartments, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's, I can point to them.
Okay.
But Elizabeth is starting to really pick up
Come
some
on, okay.
activity. So buckle up, because we're going to start seeing a whole lot more of that. Yes, they are, Ant Hills.
The calendar year 2022, the average monthly is 861,000. We did see in January back up to about 507,000. So we weren't quite for the month at the average for last year, but January generally, we wouldn't expect that to be a high month. Any other questions about impact fees? It's continual.
Yeah.
It's continual. Two other things I want to share. As far as the education funding model update, we have now received the allocations for the 45th day counts. They're very interesting. 45 school districts received a loss in funding across the state. The loss ranged from $45,000 to $6.6 million, which was Greenville.
And Leanne, to clarify what that means.
Okay.
They had been given a number at the beginning of the year of what to expect, and now they've been given a new number that is X amount less.
Correct, because it is a pot of money, and it is reallocated among the districts based on the 45-day average daily membership with weightings for certain categories of students. So you are dependent not only on your own data being accurate, but every district in the state reporting accurately in this reallocation of this new funding model. So it's no longer based on we will get X amount more per student. It is what is our growth relative to what is going on in the other districts and what is going on with their weightings.
So it used to be under the old formula, the legislature passed the budget in July. You were given a certain amount of money. At the 45th day, if you grew, you received additional dollars.
Correct.
If you grew at the 135th day, you received additional dollars. Now you're given this finite pot of money.
Correct.
So we came out to the good on this.
We came out to the good, so.
The next one we could come out to the negative.
Correct. It's very dependent on what everyone across the state reports now. 28 districts received an increase, and the increases range from 48,000 to 4.7 million. 4.7 million was Berkeley. We gained a net increase of 312,000, and the reason I say a net increase, as you remember, there were about 5 school districts that had a hold harmless provision, and we were one of them. We should have gained more, but in the recalculation, they reduced our hold harmless by 1.7 million. So we should have gained about 2 million, and we only netted 300,000. Just to show you can't really think through the logic of this. The Spartanburg school districts in total gained $9.8 million, while the York County school districts lost collectively $1.2 million. So it is very dependent on how everyone's reporting and their weightings of their students, more than just saying, I expect to see the higher growth districts gaining more dollars.
And that's hundreds of teachers.
Hundreds of teachers, hundreds of teachers, and even some of the very small school districts, very poor school districts in the state lost money, and I'm just not sure how they are able to adapt to that. As a result, I have scheduled a meeting Friday in Columbia with a few districts. Greenville, I've talked to. Lexington 1, I've talked with. Lexington 1 was also a hold harmless district, and now they've completely lost all their hold harmless funding. And we know Lexington 1 is growing, and they're very concerned about this. Spartanburg 7 is coming, and we've asked to meet with Frank Rainwater, who really, I think we would say it was the keeper of all the calculations for the House and Senate members. We've asked to meet with Frank, and we've asked to meet with Nancy Williams, who's the CFO at the State Department, because Nancy is the one that interprets the legislative language and actually runs the calculations. And so we want to sit down and we're actually meeting at the School Boards Association building and talk to the two of them and see if they can help us with some modifications going forward in the language. My expectation was once we were in a hold harmless scenario, that guaranteed our fiscal year 21-22 revenue, and then we would receive additional revenue, most likely on top of our hold harmless, because generally we've been the fastest growing percentage-wise, and that is not how the calculation is working.
Hey, Leanne.
Yes.
Could you explain what hold harmless means and
Sure.
why we
Oh, good point.
qualified for it?
Yes. So last year, about this time, we started this pursuit because the first calculations that came out statewide under the new funding model had us losing between $5 and $6 million. And through a process of meeting with a lot of people, and we presented a lot of state committee meetings, we had the language put into the proviso for the state budget that would guarantee that we would receive funding at least equal to fiscal year 21-22 funding. And there were, I believe, about 5, maybe 6 districts only in the state who, under the new funding model, were going to lose. And so we were able to get that language in that was to guarantee us at least that amount of funding.
Because to the state's credit, they were putting more money in education,
Correct.
but we didn't meet the criteria that gained additional funds.
Correct. So we will see how these, once again, we're jumping on this. We have to collaborate with some other districts, I feel like, to have any meaningful change on this. I don't think just Fort Mill going out, we're going to get a lot of sympathy for us.
Have you also, though, engaged some of the districts that lost money? Like some of the, like you were saying, the
Yes.
small, rural,
Yes.
poorer districts?
I think that'll be our next,
Can't afford
that'll be our
for this
next
swing
step.
to keep happening.
Is to bring in some of those, and we'll go based on Frank Rainwater's advice on how we need to proceed with this, because I think he's the one that would have the House and Senate members' ears. I have also talked with Mark Truesdale, who is the key staffer for House Ways and Means, and they write the state budget. And he and I have looked at these spreadsheets, and he was very surprised that exact thing was happening with some of those districts. And his comment was like, I'm not sure how they can handle that. Once you plan your budget, you set your budget based on the predicted allocations, and to have that much of a swing negative. And you can see, looking at the charts, what happens is all these districts lose, and you then can see where the money's going. But it's going to be very, very difficult to plan ahead with any accuracy on what could happen for all districts planning their budgets for next year. And that's what everyone across the state's saying. So we're starting the discussion again.
One more question along those lines. So this funding formula was a proviso.
Correct.
Any indication whether there is interest, intention to make it permanent law, just roll it out as a proviso again, change it around?
I'm hearing that the plan was to roll it out as a proviso one more time to make some possible tweaks. And so that's why I feel like this could be the time before it becomes permanent law if changes need to be made with this.
Whatever they've done is not doing the intent, and they've got a lot of work to do to get it fixed.
Correct.
And I get the spirit of it, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, you hired teachers for X amount of students, and you now have Y amount of teachers. And just because a few students left in the middle of the year, teachers have a year-long contract.
Right.
We're going to
Right.
continue to pay those teachers and keep them throughout at least this year, even if not, unfortunately.
Absolutely. And I think we will probably need to pull in the School Boards Association to help us as well.
Well, and not
once we
everybody
get-
has a fund balance that they
Right.
can go to help bridge the gap that they're being penalized by. So there is a lot of unintended fallout that is going to be
Right.
sitting here in a time when
It's going to be very difficult to manage this for all the districts.
Yeah. Well, and-
whether you're gaining money or not. I mean, so on the other side of that, my last update for you is, every year, and for the new board members, your authority to set millage for next year is based on two components. One is the Consumer Price Index, and the second is our population. And those two percentages combined, then you multiply times our current millage. The Consumer Price Index amount always comes out first. The population numbers we usually do not receive until about mid-April. We have received the letter from the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office for the Consumer Price Index. It has increased 8%. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. 8%. Last year was 4.7. This is probably the largest I can remember ever seeing percentage-wise. So would you like to know what 8% is?
Yes, please.
Okay. No one gets excited about this but me.
8% is what could be raised in millage.
For Consumer Price Index.
Not that it will be, but
Not that it will be, but you would have the authority for that portion. 8% of our current operational millage, which is 231.5, is 18 mills.
And then that'll be added to for whatever.
And that'll be added to for the population growth. So just for information, 18 mills.
And that's just the Consumer Price Index.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yes. But I say that on the heels of what the state is
Right.
forcing
What
our
they do is-
hand
right.
with the other.
Right.
So,
Which is why those $10.5 million of fee and lieu are so frustrating, because that, how many mills is that?
yeah, about 30, yeah, a lot.
Imagine if we
It's a lot.
had that 30.
Yes, exactly. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you.
All right. All right, superintendent's report.
Okay, calendar of events, we're rolling right along, the shortest month of the year. I know the budget people like that, February. Run out of month before you run out of money, maybe. The meeting tonight, of course, Monday, the board visits to Fort Mill Middle, Fort Mill Elementary, Dobies Bridge, and Forest Creek. For the public's benefit, this is, we visit every school per our policy once a year. And this will be those 4 schools' day to be visited by the school board. That'll begin at 11 a.m. on the 13th. Principals meeting the 15th. It's the next weekend, or two weekends from now, the 16th through the 19th, the South Carolina School Board Association annual conference be held, and several of our board members will be in attendance at that meeting. Teacher work day on the 17th. No school for students. Full day for staff, and the president's holiday on the 20th. And somebody was mentioning this is one of the first years, or maybe second year, we've been able to do that without taking a snow day or makeup day.
Don't say that out loud.
Okay.
So far.
I just
So
came
far.
home from the Arctic tundra. Don't say that.
Okay, well, we hope we can honor that. And then, of course, the second meeting of the month on the 22nd. Board members have any other dates that I'm leaving out?
And that's a Wednesday, just to remind everybody,
Yes, it is a
because of the,
we
because
come
of the
back on
holiday.
21st, yeah, right.
The only thing I was gonna just mention, because some of them are here, is it's past, but this past Saturday was a very successful polar plunge to raise $75,000 or so for Special Olympics. It was a really cold morning. I was glad I was not plunging. I was happy to cheer everybody on. So thank you to our principals and assistant principals and lead teachers and parents and everybody else that participated in that crazy day.
Yeah, that looked like a crazy day. Okay, enrollment update. We're showing, this is a tricky month. We back out our December grads, which were 54 kids graduated early. So it's showing that we actually went down from 18,254 to 18,200.
But that's because they graduated.
That's because they graduated. And if you look at the real numbers, we actually grew by, if you just count the plus and minus change out there and leave the high schools out of it, we grew by about 28. And there may be some new ones in the high school that I'm not showing. I think I ran the numbers earlier and there were 30-some kids. So it'll all get back to normal. But you can always add 54 to whatever the total is, and that'll be what we budget for each year. So just because it looks funny, we didn't lose 54 kids in one month.
No, but wow, Springfield Elementary, who gained 19 in 1 month. So clearly there's a pocket of growth going on there.
Yeah, that's right. And then the monthly attendance winners for teacher attendance. Fort Mill High School led the way of the high schools with 60, let me see, I got it right here on my sheet, I want to say it right. 96.733. Forest Creek Middle led the middle schools, 96.228. And leading the elementaries and the district was Orchard Park with 97.17. Did I read that right? Yes, 97.17. So thanks for the teachers for attending at a 97% rate. We appreciate it. And that's all I have as far as the agenda is concerned.
Okay. We are in need of an executive session to discuss personnel recommendations, legal issues, and superintendent goals and evaluation. Motion to move into
Motion to
executive
go
session.
into executive session.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We are now in executive session.